你们，大家好，新年快乐. For all of my colleagues from China or who can speak Chinese, welcome and happy Chinese New Year to all of you. It is an absolute honor for me to be able to be an honorary chair this year and to welcome all of you to the 2013 CABE conference here in beautiful Long Beach. Some of you may be wondering, especially for those of you not from the Southern California area, what is ABC? I hear that a lot whenever we tell people we're from ABC Unified School District, and they ask, is that a real district? Or is that something like XYZ when you put it on a form? Well, for those of you not familiar with my district, we're actually only about 13 miles here, a little bit north of Long Beach, and we serve the cities of Artesia, Cerritos, Hawaiian Gardens, Lakewood, portions of Lakewood, Norwalk, and portions of Long Beach. And almost 50 years ago, our district unified with Artesia, Bloomfield, and Carmenita school districts, and a very clever community member decided to take the first letter of each of those three districts and named it ABC. So now you know what ABC means. Our district, with over 31 schools, 21,000 ethnically and linguistically diverse students, is truly a microcosm of California. And I feel honored to be a part of not only California's and ABC's rich history and culture, but also the very first woman superintendent in a district of almost 50 years. And to even break the bamboo ceiling, as was termed yesterday by Professor Yong Zhao, I'm also the very first bilingual Asian American superintendent for the district. As Ramon said, I'm a daughter of an immigrant family from mainland China, and my dreams and my hopes were shaped by my parents and especially teachers. And so I just applaud all of the teachers in the room here today and all of those involved in the world of schooling. My parents worked in a laundry and didn't know how to navigate the school system in Chicago, but I was inspired and challenged and cared for by the teachers in the schools. My parents felt welcomed and respected and valued despite their lack of English skills and knowledge of the American school system. And I entered a school as a non-English speaker, but I was able to navigate and to untangle the new language, devoured books at the public library for free, and dreamed of one day being a school teacher. I was absolutely convinced by my parents, and especially my teachers, that even though those with almost nothing, that through hard work, anything was possible. And I believe my story is the story of millions of English learners in California. They may even be your story, or very similar to the hundreds of participants here at CABE today. And I think it's so important to share stories and to be able to have stories inspire others. My rallying cry in ABC, as those who are here from my district know, that we hope that demographics do not determine the destiny of our students. I'm so grateful for CABE for the last 2 decades, for supporting and providing the resources to our teachers, our administrators, our paraeducators, and especially our parents of English learners. Yesterday, I was sitting at a table with parents, and I was so proud of them for having the courage to come here and to be able to participate, even though they may not know a single word of English. And for almost 4 decades, CABE has been the voice for millions of students who may otherwise be invisible. And I feel so fortunate yesterday afternoon to have celebrated with Esther Hua Nguyen from ABC, who was honored by CABE as the Distinguished Paraeducator of the Year. Her own dramatic life story, from living in a tent in Vietnam to the classrooms and providing the level of support to ABC today is surely an inspiration to us all. And tonight I'll be joining a very large group from Nemus Elementary School in ABC as the recipient of CABE's Seal of Excellence Award. We'll be celebrating our dual language immersion program that's been in place for 21 years. So CABE's huge commitment to recognizing and promoting biliteracy efforts in our schools just simply can't be understated in today's economic world. Our conference theme, Voices for Change, is so fitting as we move forward with significant changes ahead of us. The Common Core state standards, our new Smarter Balanced Assessment system, and certainly the new technologies that are in front of us. And we in ABC value CABE's continuous leadership and support for English learners as we move ahead and prepare for these changes. I look forward also to our keynote speaker, Kenji Hakuda, this morning, whose research and work has guided me throughout my career. I wish you all a great conference, a great experience here, networking with hundreds of people throughout the state. To all of you, muchas gracias, 非常感谢你们. Have a great experience, everyone.
It is with great pleasure that I introduce our next speaker. As board member first, and professor at Cal State East Bay, it's a great pleasure to introduce Arkino Kenji Hakuda. Kenji teaches at Stanford in the School of Education, where he has been faculty since 1989. He holds an endowed chair as the Lee L. Jacks Professor. He is an experimental psycholinguist by training, best known for his work in the area of bilingualism and the acquisition of English in immigrant students. Dr. Hakuda has testified to Congress and other public bodies on a variety of topics, including language policy and the education of language minority students. He's the co-chair of the Understanding Language Initiative that focuses attention on the role of language in subject area learning, with a special focus on helping English learners meet the new Common Core standards and the next generation science standards. He's currently spending a lot of time in schools looking for interesting collaboration and activities that direct impact the lives of students. He will be addressing the challenges and opportunities of the Common Core for California English learners, looking especially at the role of language in content teaching and learning. Please join me in welcome Dr. Kenji Hakuda.
Thank you. Good morning. Ohayou gozaimasu. Buenos dias, all those things. Sorry, this will take me just 1 second to boot up. I promise this will not be a lot of words on the PowerPoints. There. Oh, I should close my email. That is a very dangerous thing to do in public. Oops. This is backwards. Okay. Sorry about that. First of all, it's really a pleasure. I wonder if we could turn this. I have two audios here going. If you can get the sound person to do this, I'll turn this off for now, and I'll stand here. I'd prefer to walk around if possible. Is it just the echo in the room? Okay, then I shouldn't worry about it, right? Okay. All right. This is just like teaching. You have to keep improvising here. So it's really great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I see so many good friends, not just from California, but from around the country. And the theme for today, I know is in many of your minds right now is the Common Core, and what does the Common Core imply for the education of English language learners and for the development of bilingualism. And I guess I would say that these are interesting times, that the Common Core has made it really interesting, and it's both a real challenge, and I really would echo what Shelley said. I don't know if I will paraphrase that Common Core implementation must be accompanied by the full inclusion of and consideration of English language learners. And without that, yeah, I don't have your card. I'm sorry, Shelley. You'll have to give it to me before I leave. But that is absolutely, unless those conditions are met, the Common Core is really going to be yet another set of standards, yet another set of reforms. And in fact, I think it'll be quite harmful to the education of our children. And so what I've been spending a lot of my time in the last couple of years is really trying to get a national conversation going about how it is, why it is that that's so imperative, and also how it is that we can go about doing that. Here we go. So I'll say that there are a couple of things I think that are hopeful, just kind of taking the national pulse, that we can say these are at least worth considering right now, taking advantage of this, and that things are different from how things were 10 or 15 years ago. For one thing, there's this research, there's getting to be a real research base now about the positive advantages of bilingualism. This is not new. There's a lot of new research coming out of Canada. Ellen Bialystok, one of my good friends and colleagues, is doing much of that work. And if you aren't aware of it, just go and look for some of the even New York Times or Science Magazine, for example, has been. This is an article from 2010 about the benefits of multilingualism that summarized some of her work. And most of you, I assume, in this room are bilingual, and you'll be glad to know that one of the findings that's been the most noted is that if you compare bilingual and monolingual immigrants in the onset of dementia, that there's about a 4-year advantage, that is a 4-year delay for bilinguals over monolinguals. So try to remember that. And when some of these findings were reported in the New York Times, in the Science Times, there was a story last year, I think, where it was the most forwarded email article for a couple of weeks. And so I guess I'm saying that the times are different. People are really receptive to the idea of the advantages of bilingualism, so that we could move away from deficit models to more of the advantages and privileges of bilingualism. If there's anybody here from Jurupa, is there anybody here from Jurupa? Yay, hello Jurupa. We're doing a study right now at Sunny Slope Elementary, looking at precisely that question. Ellen Bialystok and I are collaborating in a study that's at Jurupa. Thanks to Shelley, actually, for connecting us to Jurupa to do that work. So I think that's one piece where one area in which we can be quite hopeful that the environment is more receptive. The other is that this is going away, right? This was Prop 227, and I think the results of last November's election makes it very clear that you just can't get ahead politically anymore using bilingualism, immigration, or diversity as a wedge issue in politics. If you're going to do that, you're just losing. you're going to lose. And that's very, very clear. And so I think that looking at that context, there we go. So this is my only sound effect for this presentation. Okay, so I enjoy that. I feel like that, that has gone away, even though here it is as a law, that it's clear that nobody could win an election using anything like this anymore. And so I think that we can openly talk about the advantages of bilingualism. We could move away from a deficit approach and so forth. So here comes the Common Core. The Common Core is sort of a big ripple. I borrowed this photo. I was telling a friend of mine Jeff Johnson, who has the coolest job, far cooler than anything I know that you have or I have. He's the surfing photographer for Patagonia. So he goes around the world, actually, but around California, especially up and down the beaches in his little Patagonia van, and takes photos of surfers. He's also a rock climber, and has his climbing gear, and that's how I ran into him, because I do some rock climbing. And so, for example, if you ask my son who has a cooler job, Jeff or me, he'd say, of course, he's what a job. Anyway, so I was telling him about the work I was doing around the Common Core, and one way to think about it is as a big wave that's sweeping the educational landscape. And I asked him to share. I don't know why the picture moves away. Here we go. I think the people would much rather enjoy seeing the slides than me here. So, but I was describing him the waves, and I asked him to share some throwaway surfing photos for purposes of my presentation. He sent a bunch, and this one I really liked. I said, oh yeah, this is kind of what the Common Core is like. What makes it really common? What makes it common is, or what makes it big, is the fact that 45 states have signed on to it. So it's not a state-by-state thing anymore. There's critical mass. There's a lot more people focused on the same set of standards in English language arts, literacy, math, as well as the next generation science standards than kind of a state-by-state, and that sort of makes it large. And so if we think about sort of the sorts of things we do in education, I think the way that reform happens is, let's try this program. What sort of, this is what the Curriculum Commission does. What textbooks should we adopt, and so forth. Those are all, or what kind of ELD program should there be? Should there, should we use systematic ELD and so forth? Those are all sort of the kinds of things that we think about, right, as educators. And if you think about the sorts of reforms, if you can think of those as reforms, as sort of those little splatters there that we're trying to do in the context of a lot of things that are going around, this big wave is coming, right, called the Common Core. And the takeaway message for me is that, oops, sorry, I'm going to skip over that in the interest of time, is that there's a lot of language characterization of the Common Core, of the content that's contained in the Common Core, and we as educators of English language learners should be paying attention to that. I wanted to give a little bit of historical context to this, because we tend to sort of focus on the issues of the moment and so forth, and forget that this is we're kind of living in a moment in history which, we can look back and say, well, this is really, the Common Core is really the third push, the third wave of the push towards standards and using standards to improve education. And we go back to the top left square, which is a picture of the committee that developed A Nation at Risk, right? And A Nation at Risk led to standards. And so this was in the early 80s. And I guess one should also talk about the picture on the right top, which is the closest photo I have to the era of Lau v. Nichols. This is not, I've looked hard for pictures of Kinney Lau, a 1974 Supreme Court decision based in San Francisco, affirming the obligations of school districts for limited English or English language learners. And that's the closest thing I could find from the San Francisco Historical Society from that era. And so there's that push also. But from the Congress, what you see is responses to A Nation at Risk, which led to the signing by Bill Clinton, the right bottom-hand corner, who signed Improving America's Schools Act in the early 1990s. And that was the first time that the idea of state-level standards and assessment came about. And then George Bush, in the first months of his presidency, signed No Child Left Behind, which is the law that we all love to hate. And so that's the second wave of standards. And what goes on in No Child Left Behind, what No Child Left Behind set in motion, we're kind of living today. The part of No Child Left Behind that I think we as advocates for English language learners like is the one piece that is about the disaggregation. Although the disaggregation that is reporting separately results for English learners with other subgroups, and that being part of the accountability for Title I funding. And that piece is, without that piece, many school districts might not be paying as much attention to the needs of English language learners. So that requirement, which is that word inclusion in Title I, and disaggregation, the results should be reported disaggregated by group, is a really, in my opinion, a very important piece for the system to pay attention to the needs of English language learners. It does it very imperfectly. For example, reclassified or redesignated students drop out of that accountability after a certain number of years, and so school districts can't keep track, or this accountability system doesn't keep track of English language learners who've been redesignated, who are the success cases, and so that's problematic. But the law is always imperfect, but the disaggregation piece is really important. The other piece that's important in that law is connecting academic language or content language with the English language proficiency standards. So this is what's contained in the CELT and the California ELD standards, which just got revised. But basically the law, in the law is the connection between academic progress and English language proficiency, right? And so again, that's imperfectly operationalized as AMAO 3. Okay, those in your school districts kind of understand what that term is, and if not, you don't want to know about it. But but the connecting language and content is kind of the basis for doing that is already contained in No Child Left Behind. And then along comes the Common Core. What the Common Core does is, I put it in a picture. This is UC Merced, okay, the 10th campus, the newest campus of the University of California in Central Valley. And I played a role in starting that up. You'll see me in my academic garb marching with the first class of students this was 2005, so that's already a while ago. But anyway, this whole idea of college career readiness, okay, is what drives the Common Core. Okay? That's what makes it different, which is taking college career readiness. So in the case of California, it's not just A through G courses, but it's also having students ready to enter college and not have to take remedial courses in writing. So in the University of California, that would be the Subject A requirement, because if not, you would have to take you would need to take the remedial course in writing or the equivalent in math, right? And that the rates of students who need to take those remedial courses at UC Merced, this was the top 12% of California's graduating students. That first entering cohort, 70% of the students required, had to take remedial writing, right? So if you consider that, that's also, those tests are imperfect and so